We are here with four esteemed panelists, Nathalie, Jason, Nazir, and Stefano. I'd like for each one of you to introduce yourselves very quickly, and then we'll dive into the conversation with my first question. So, Nathalie, maybe you could start us off.
Yes, so hello everybody. Hello, dear panelists. So I'm Nathalie Beaudemoulin. I'm in charge of the FinTech Innovation Unit at the ACPR, which is a French banking and insurance and payment supervisor. We have created this unit in June 2016 in order to help FinTech in their regulatory journey. And every day we are receiving FinTech demands, and we have a dialogue with them on their projects in order to help them with our experts at the ACPR FinTech Innovation Unit.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Jason Oxman. I'm the CEO of the Electronic Transactions Association. ETA is headquartered in Washington, D.C. in the U.S. We are the primary association of the financial services and technology industry in the U.S. We represent about 500 companies, ranging from card networks to financial institutions to payment processors, fintech companies, lenders, and technology companies that are engaged in payments. We've been around for about 30 years, and as a trade association in the U.S., our primary objective and our focus of our business is to assist companies looking to do business in the U.S. in the financial services, technology, and fintech space.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is N.Zubairi. I'm the CEO of the Loft. I'm also a board director at SEB Bank and sit on the steering committee of the Luxembourgish regulator for digital services. The Loft is a public-private initiative that is focused on driving financial technology innovation for Luxembourg's financial services sector. So we work very closely with the banks. 13 institutions sit on our board. And we enable the collaboration between fintech and the institutional side of the business to progress Luxembourg's financial services industry.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Stefano Scelera. I'm Counsellor to the Ministry of Finance in Italy. My first duties as Counsellor is on investment, and I'm also chairing an informal table among the Italian authorities to focus on fintech and the evolution of the banking sector.
Thank you. So I'm going to launch the conversation, and I really have absolutely no clue whether you're going to attack me immediately or agree with me. So here is my premise. Regulation of the financial services industry, obviously. Regulation should not be viewed as a competitive asset. Viewing it as a competitive asset leads you towards the path of sometimes negative unintended consequences, whether it's industry capturing, the narrative, or a government. On top of that, competition in that realm very quickly gets you to a race to the bottom. Regulation should be, as a counterpoint, about efficient and healthy financial markets, as well as protection of all actors, whether they are retail or wholesale. And maybe, as a byproduct, you will get an environment or an ecosystem that is quote-unquote competitive, but leading with, King for a day, Pascal Bouvier for France, for example, will use regulation to compete in the global marketplace is actually a negative path that should be avoided. Who would like to either agree or counter me?
I was just going to say thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The panel is now over. It's done. We can leave.
Please.
Yes, this is quite a complicated topic, basically, because as France, we form part of the European Union. So for me, it would be very complicated to take French financial regulatory actions that will not be in compliance with European directives. So I consider that we are participating in the European regulation. Our main goal is to establish a stable, agile regulation that welcome innovation, but in a safety manner. I would like to say responsible innovation. And I think it would not be a good idea to have a competition with the regulation within the marketplaces. But in some area, it may be important that a country, regarding its own market, its own characteristics, its own innovations, take some actions to foster innovation in some areas. And I would like to mention that France, for example, has taken a law on blockchain because there is no specific European framework for blockchain to be used for some categories of bonds that are not regulated at European level, such as unlisted bonds. So it's not purely a competitive action, but the idea is to take a regulation in a specific area to foster innovation, but also we have this dialogue at European level within a new blockchain working group with the European Commission, where we come to explain our regulation and what we do, because the main goal for us is to have this kind of regulation at European level.
I would say I agree with your thesis, and I think the best way to think about it, the proper role of a regulator, is to protect competition, not competitors. And what that means philosophically is the proper role of a regulator, and I was a regulator in the US and had to deal with this quite frequently. The proper role of a regulator is to make sure the competitive landscape, the marketplace, is conducive to entry, but not to do something that a regulator can do to protect a particular competitor. The best example of this is in the bank versus fintech battle that many talk about. In the US, banks are very heavily regulated. In fact, the regulatory regime that applies to banks in the US has been around a very long time. The OCC, the Office of Comptroller of the Currency, one of the main bank regulators, was formed by President Abraham Lincoln. That's how old the organization is. The Federal Reserve, the other main bank regulator in the US, is more than 100 years old. So these organizations have been around for a long time. They've been doing things in a particular way for a long time. New fintech companies come in and say, we want to compete against the banks. It's not fair to make us get these bank licenses. It's not fair to make us follow all these reserve requirements. And the regulators say, well, we have these requirements in place for a reason, and maybe you don't have to satisfy all of the requirements, but they exist to protect competition, not individual companies. So I think as regulators look to create an environment in the US or in Europe or elsewhere where new entrants, fintech companies, can enter the market, it's important that they not change the rules specifically for a type of company or even an individual company, but rather they ensure that rules that may have been around for 100 years are updated to facilitate competition across companies, no matter how long they've been in business.
I agree with everything you said. That's a simple statement.
I haven't paid any of the panelists.
Yeah, that's why I said the panel's kind of over. You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly the way regulation should be. The sense I get is in the EU there is more focus on a unified approach to regulation. I mean, Bitcoin, actually Bitcoin is not the one. Virtual currencies and ICOs is a good example in point in that there is a general and broad agreement for the regulation to be put in place at the EU level, whereas there's a lot of individual pressure on individual countries within the EU to push forward, but everyone is holding out. Few have broken ranks and said a few things, but generally they are waiting in a unified response to provide action on ICOs.